But okay, so the fourth line bonding strategy is to be friends, to be the confidant. That's all they really want. It's really interesting for me knowing some of the fourth lines. Which,
Let's see.
yeah, I don't really want to name names if we're doing a video of those.
Let's cut it out.
I'm not going to cut it out.
Why can't you cut it out? It's so easy to be first.
It is not easy to watch an hour and every single time somebody mentions
I will do this for you.
This is second line stuff. There was the second line and the first line.
Easy.
The first line is like there's literally a way to do something. There's like a coordinate, and the second line is like I'm just being myself. I'm just gonna like continue to be myself regardless. So okay.
It's not worth capturing otherwise.
I agree. Just do it yourself, and then otherwise it's fine. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to edit it, and I'm going to upload this. And nobody
No.
has defined ego, so when anybody says I will, it doesn't mean anything.
Oh no.
Oh no, you have defined ego. If you say you will, then you actually will.
Yes, I.
Oh, I didn't even realize how they. Oh, you have the 45-21. That's a great one. I'm going to talk to you about all my. I'm going to talk to you about all my money problems. That's the money line. It's like made for dealing with other people's money problems.
Wow, cool.
You should be a financial advisor.
Oh, right, okay.
You should totally be a financial
I
advisor.
can help, yeah.
Okay, but anyway, so we're talking about fourth line bonding strategy. They just want to be your friend. They do get a lot of really interesting.
So it's like primarily asexual line.
Yeah, they have the hardest time with sexuality, and I mean,
That's so
a lot of
interesting.
them will actually have a lot of sex, but I feel like they're not doing it for the same reason that other people have sex. They're doing it
Well, why do you have sex?
for enjoyment and satisfaction, but they're doing it for the ulterior motive of like bonding, almost to be a better friend with the person.
That's so
that
interesting.
the person will confide more in them.
Oh,
Like, building
damn,
more trust.
okay. That seems so
I mean,
manipulative, but no, it's...
Well,
not
no,
really.
I mean, it's funny because like I'm thinking of one fourth line I know who claims to love sex, have amazing sex, and like I'm sure that is part of it. Maybe it is that they can truly enjoy sex and let themselves go with it when they have that person who confides in them. But they're the line where it's appropriate for the other person to tell them if they're attracted to somebody else. It's like all that stuff. The other thing about the fourth line is that there's really no difference between friends and lovers at a technical level where they don't compartmentalize like that. So you can know a fourth line for like 10 years and then start something romantic with them. Like all of their friendships have the potential to become romantic. It's very different from the other lines where it's a little more compartmentalized. The other thing about the fourth lines, they're really about building their network of influence and their network of power. So a big part of it is like they are pillars of the community, and they have no discrimination of the people that they accept into that. So it's super important for fourth lines to like have trusted friends that they know are good for them, who introduce them to other trusted friends. Because if they just meet strangers, they're going to let them in. Like, I can't tell you how many fourth lines I've met who got really involved with criminals. It's a very common thing. Oh, absolutely. Almost every fourth line, because they just accept everybody. They just have this universal brotherhood, sisterhood, I'm your friend thing, and they have no discrimination, and so they end up being friends with criminals and just basically just getting along with anybody, not even realizing it.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so then there's the fifth line. The fifth line basically carries all the hopes and expectations of the world to supply practical solutions. Yeah.
That's you.
So we have to provide practical solutions and practical advice to problems. So we're the real problem solvers. We kind of come in and we look at the problems that are there and we try to solve them. And we have to be practical, and if we're not, then we're hated. We're super hated. The reason we're hated is because we build a lot of trust from people. So the fifth line is able to get a tremendous... I'm not going to eat that. Calm eater. I'm not going to eat in the middle of it.
That's pretty calm.
Antisocial eater, I'll put it that way. I'm going to start calling calm antisocial, because that's a better way to put it. I'm an antisocial eater. But the fifth line really, it's a constant challenge for us. It's amazing how many fifth lines get hated and how much gossip there is about them and how they're chased with pitchforks.
Why?
For doing the wrong thing. Because we immediately build trust with people, and part of the trust that we build, we're able to get really close with people, and they let us in, and they trust us, and then we take on a larger-than-life role for them. Because remember, these are all roles. It's not even really who we are. It's what roles we play.
Like with H-word person. We esteem her so much.
Helen?
Huh?
Who? What?
Is that person a 5?
We talked about it earlier. The
That person
5'1"
a
person that you hung out with and got micheladas with the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
I have
much
a lot of
love.
esteem for it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? You would also be
Aw.
equally disappointed if she ever did something to betray you in a serious way. Whereas,
No, that'd be fine.
no, everyone says it'll be fine, but it's not. Okay, this is the amazing thing. It's like physically impossible to ever imagine being angry at these fifth-line people.
Yeah.
But because of how extreme that is, it's the exact opposite extreme if they actually do betray you.
Wait,
So,
but aren't you an H1 person also? No, you're a no.
I'm a 5'1".
You're a 5'1".
What if only 6 lines can imagine it?
No,
Why not?
Okay, maybe. But neither of you are
Sounds
get
like a
fully
good
6
role to
lines.
me.
You're both in your third line phase. Okay.
I've
So-
never been disappointed by a 5th line.
Well, no, that's not true. I'm sure we could find one. But it's interesting. So just to give an example, I had a good friend who was a writer from Alabama, and he moved to Seattle, and I took on this image of a bohemian to him, and
You became the representative.
I became a representative of something bigger than me. I wasn't just Jonah. I was bohemian, cool guy.
Yeah.
And then we were both going after the same girl. We had a big falling out, and I betrayed him by saying something really mean to him.
What did you say?
So this is after. Okay, it went back and forth. Okay, so basically, first he was flirting with a married woman at my house, and I told him if her husband saw that, he'd throw it out the window.
Whoa.
And then he was like, ha ha ha, funny. And I said, no, get your hands off her. And I got in his face about it.
Damn.
Because he was like trying to massage her back. So she was really drunk. And she was married.
Good for you.
And, but you know, I mean, it was a little bit intense. I got in his face. Then later I hadn't realized that he'd been secretly dating the person who was my coworker, who was also a 5'1", who I had been kind of seeing a little bit, but not really. And so then he told me to back off from her, and I told him to back off, and she came over to my house, and he came over uninvited, and it was this huge thing.
Oh my god.
And he was super defensive about her, and then we were having a falling out about that, and then later, let's see, I'm trying to remember the order. Oh yeah, then later he apologized, I wouldn't accept his apology, and then I ended up texting him a bunch of stuff about her, and then he held a grudge, and then when I got back together with my ex-girlfriend, he sent her the screenshots of all the texts and broke us up.
Whoa.
Wow, that's cool.
He
6
broke you
months
up.
later.
Wow.
Well, 6 months later, because he'd heard from my coworker, who'd heard from my other coworker, that I'd gotten back together, and he knew my girlfriend that I got back together with, who was also a 5'1". 5'1s tend to be in these really weird little cycles together.
Damn.
But he was a 6'2". He was not a 5'1".
Right. So I got
6
Yeah.
sucks, yeah.
Well, no, 6'2's not sex. 6'2's are great. What it really was,
Yeah,
6'2's
6'2's
can, well, it got to be a difficult thing, but what I realized is that it had nothing to do with me. It was that I had come to take on this larger-than-life role to him
Yes, yeah.
as a certain symbol. Like, he was from a small town in Alabama and had never lived in a city, and he had this dream of being this sophisticated, he, like, loved French, and he loved writing
And
all
he
this
was my
stuff.
sophisticated man projection point.
Yeah, and
Where's
like,
my guy?
Even more than I actually was. He just saw me that way because people could see what they want. And
Oh,
find
you
out.
actually were to some degree.
I was to a degree, but not to the degree he saw. That's the thing, because he didn't see the crassness, or he didn't see the others. He only saw what he wanted to see. So anyway, the fifth line, I mean, you know most of this, basically gets the brunt of the projections and then the disappointment. So we're always walking the line. And then I'll tell the sixth line when she gets back. Since you already mostly know your sixth line stuff.
Could you talk about how the 2 and 4 are octaves?
Well, they're not really octaves.
They aren't?
No, the 2 and the 5 are.
What? I thought
The 1
there's
and
always
4
an agreement between those that are one space away.
No, it's the opposite. There's an agreement in the transitional profiles. I'm going to say this for later.
Yeah.
The transitional profiles have an agreement. 1 and 4 are harmonic. 2 and 5 are harmonic. And 3 and 6.
Well, I know that that's like the perfect harmony, but isn't there sort of a... it almost feels like a a side quest or something.
I would call it
a
tension. I would call it tension. Like the 1 and the 3. 1 and the 3 tension is that the 1 is authoritarian, the 3 is anarchist. So the 1 wants stability, the 3 wants constant change. So they're constantly in tension with themselves. Because the 1 is like, I want to be with the same partner for the rest of my life. 3 is like, I want a new partner every week. Right? The 2 and the 4 have the tension because the 2 says, leave me alone. The 4 says, I'll be your friend. So the 2 is like, leave me, I want to be by myself. And the 4 is like, come on over here, I'll be your friend.
So it's compliments.
But it's tension. They're at odds. They're opposed to each other. They're at odds because the 2-line process says, leave me alone. The 4-line process says, involve me.
Yes.
The 3 and the 5 are at odds because the 3 says, I'm going to make as many mistakes as possible. The 5 says, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get burned at the stake. I have to do it perfectly the first time. The 4 and the 6 are also at odds in their own way because the 6 ultimately is so detached and distant and objective, and the 4 is so subjective and like, this is good and so involved. The 5 and the 1 have their own tension. I guess it's between the 5th line.
The 5 and the 1 have their own tension?
Yeah, because the 5th line process wants to be totally like universal and make everything for history, and the 1st line is just, I just want to do my own thing and just be by myself and study this one thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's the tension between...
That's the real square, I think.
Well, but they all kind of are. I mean, the 5th line is like, I want to add something to the history books, and the 1st line is like, I want to just do my own thing and get really good at this video game or something, and then the 6 too has its own thing too. I mean, they actually seem a little more harmonic than some of them, but the 6th line, it wants to be objective and it wants to be out there, and the 2nd line is about as subjective as it gets also. So the tension between the subjective, distant point and this kind of. So maybe that is the hidden affinity between the 2 and the 4 is that they are both kind of subjective. Like, neither of them are very introspective. Like, the 2-4 is probably the least introspective. At least with the 6th line, you get that view from above. Yeah. So, Cyn, I'll tell you the 6th line, and then we can do questions. Because 6th line is what you are. You both 6-2s. So the 6th line is a 3-part process where you basically go through a 3rd line phase. And it's really good that you don't try to be the 6th line too soon. The 3rd line is basically all about making as many mistakes as you can, doing all the wrong stuff, just be in the middle of life until you hit the end of your 20s, and you start this arduous process. It takes about 7 years.
Mosh pit until you're 30.
Yeah, it's like a mosh pit, and then finally you're like, actually, I'm going to go, we call it going on the roof, I'm going to go get the view from above. Yeah. I'm going to become distant and aloof. And people think that they're distant and aloof. The last girl I was seeing for like 3 weeks was a 6-2, and she's like, oh, I'm already so on the roof. I'm so on the roof. Then she fell for my good friend the day she met him, and then proceeded to break up with me, get with him, break up with him, get with me, break up with him, back and forth for like 2 weeks straight.
That's so cool.
It's like, no, it's like 3rd line stuff. It's like so 3rd line 101. But like after she had really tried to convince me, she's like, no, I'm so on the roof. Like, I don't know what you mean by 30. I've been on the roof since I was 20. Like, I see everything from above. I see everything from the subjective.
It is always it's always there a little bit. But you know what it is? It's like, well, this is a really arcane example, but if you ever played Phantasy Star Online, it's like you always have this little thing that follows you behind. It's called a mag. It's like this little robot that's like right there. And it's like at some point your identification switches between the actual player character and the thing that's constantly following you. Or I guess in Yoshi's story, there's the Yoshi egg. I don't know, but there is like this little budding creature that's always there that's doing the 6th line thing even when you're going through the first 30 years as a 3rd line. Something there is like in gestation as the 6th line representative.
Yeah, I mean it's gestating, sure, but I feel like the big difference is that the 3rd line is continually, you can never trust the 3rd line when they say that they're with you or they're not with you, because they're continually going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's just like, I love you not, I love you not.
Wait, so this person you were dating was like a 6'2"?
A 6'2", who was 29 years old, and was still so far in the 3rd line process.
Totally.
We had continual, you can notice, I notice discrete times with 3rd lines, where it's like you could actually label.
It's okay.
Third line. Third line is constantly breaking everything, spelling everything. It's okay. It's meant to be. It's not meant to be. Get rid of It's meant to be. Okay, so, but basically, like, I literally had counted, like, the amount of different relationships that I had.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. With the sixth line in our 20s, or with the third line, you're going to be able to literally identify distinct relationships you have with that person.
Yeah.
Now, this is even true with friends. Like, my friend Daniel is a 3-5. We've already been through two or three distinct phases. The first one's when we first met, and we kind of met as professionals, one professional to another. I was DJing, he had his music stuff. We treated each other as professionals. When we first met in the studio, it was as professionals. Second phase, we became like acquaintances, and there was some time apart in that. I didn't see him for a week. Then I saw him again, and it's like the getting to know phase. Then I also didn't see him for like 3 or 4 days. Maybe he had a cold or something. And then, you were part of this one. We kind of became like a crew, like playing video games.
You and who?
Like, Daniel Blue.
Really? I did not realize you had phases with him before that.
Yeah, absolutely. From when I first met him,
Wow.
There were these multiple phases that you go through that are separated by a few days each time. Now he's gone to Seattle. Next time I see him, it'll be a fourth phase. It's going to be a totally different relationship.
Yeah.
We're not going to be sitting around playing video games. We're not going to be. You know what I mean? Like, there's really distinct phases. With the girl I was dating, we had 2 or 3 phases before she left on a trip. Then that was a huge break. I had a girlfriend back in Seattle who was a 4-6, and 3-6, and I would send her. We're not sure if she's a 3-6 or a 4-6. We don't know her exact birth time, but I think she's a 3-6. And I would literally send her like chain like emoji with scissor emoji when the bond was broken.
Cool.
Because there would
That's a
be
good
like
one.
4 days that she's going on a trip to Portland or whatever. And then she would come back and we would reunite, and it would be like a new first date. It would be like you get to have the first time with people again and again and again and again, and there's very distinct phases. And so the bond is constantly being broken and made and broken and made. And each time it's different. It's never the same as the last time. You never get back what was there. It's like a very distinct, there's a distinct timbre to it. But the sixth line bonding strategy is ultimately the soulmate. They're the only ones who actually really want to find their one perfect person for the rest of their life. Everybody else thinks they do, but that's not. Like, the fifth line bonding strategy is seduced or seduced. So the fifth lines are always trying to seduce, and then sometimes we get seduced. And we're like, oh shit, I got seduced. Everyone has their different thing they're trying to do, but so the fifth line, I see someone that I'm into, I'm going to try to seduce them. That's what I'm going to do. And then unconsciously I'm pursuing or being pursued. Sometimes I'll seduce them by being pursued.
Yeah.
I'll seduce them by ignoring them, making them pursue me. As 6-2s, what you're really looking for is the soulmate, and that's partly why you go on the roof. And for 6-2s who get married before their Saturn return or before they go on the roof, before their mid-30s, and I know one who's coming to visit very soon here, they really need, their relationship needs to undergo a massive transformation, because it's almost like a different person married them. Or they married, or they were a different person when they were married. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because you really are like different people in your 20s and 30s. Like, not everyone really changes that much. I'm pretty much the same as when I was 14. But 6 lines really dramatically change, or they have the potential to. There's no guarantee, and then some 6 lines fail to get on the roof, and then there's also the most sort of punishment of 6 lines right around the 2 phases, the end of their 20s and the beginning of their 50s. So
I had an epiphany about that earlier, where it's like, if the 6th line is the closing chapter, then they spend the first arc of their life recapping stuff. Which makes sense if you consider that the 3rd line, which is the recap, is perfectly situated between the other 4 lines. So you have 1-2 on the side, one side of the 3rd line, and you have 4-5 on the other side of the 3rd line. And so when the 6th line occurs, when it recapitulates the 3rd, it has access on either wing to the 1 and the 2 and the 4 and the 5. And so it's all filtered through the 3rd line trial and error, but it's still like you get the basic like summary of what has happened. But you have to devote a couple decades to really get that appropriate recap. And then once you hit 30, then you can actually live the thing that you're supposed to live. In conclusion of whatever that hexagram theme is.
Well, yeah, and really you're not even, I mean, you start the 6-line process when you're 30, but that's actually the arduous 23-year process of going back towards optimism, because by the end of your 20s, you're so deeply pessimistic, nothing ever works right, nothing, there is no such thing as true love, everybody's a sham, nothing really works, it's all just a joke, and then you slowly, over 20 plus years, observe how, no, actually it is possible to be optimistic about life again. But then it's not that you just end your life optimistic, you go beyond the binary. And that's the most interesting thing is that in your 50s, the 6th line becomes beyond optimism and pessimism.
Yeah.
You become kind of very,
Well, but I have trouble relating to the pessimism thing, and I couldn't be more into, I'm like 29 and a half or something. And so let's see.
You think of pessimism as skepticism?
Skepticism, I guess.
It's just a raised eyebrow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel so optimistic still. It's like...
Well, okay, but what about the world when it comes to, like, people appreciating good artists and people valuing...
That's probably not going to happen. But
No, it's already happening.
You think so?
That's what I'm saying. That's the pessimism.
Oh,
You're
okay.
like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, it's already happening. Like, it's always happened from the beginning.
I don't think
It's like
happening.
if you... No, it is exactly what it is. It's like people value good art. Good people have good things happen to them. Like, this whole worldview is so foreign to the pessimism
I
of the
get
third
that.
line.
No, I don't think it's the best things happening. I think it's the most appropriate things happening.
Okay, and here's
I
another
think it's
example.
something setting the condition for the next thing to happen.
So the other thing is, third lines and 6 lines in the third line phase are not necessarily supposed to... There's what they call internalization and externalization themes, and pessimism is actually an internalization theme, so at your best, you're not actually externalizing that pessimism.
I see.
But if I tell Daniel something, he'll be like, oh, that never worked. Like, he externalizes it immediately. Or my friend Colin back in Seattle, I tell him about the house, the first thing is, well, make sure this is that, make sure that's happening, make sure, because there's so much pessimism.
Test.
Expectations for everything to go wrong. That's what the third line is about, is expecting that relationships end in breakup, that jobs end in dissatisfaction, that, that your life will end in obscurity despite your tremendous talent, or that the talents end up being shown to be a sham to begin with. That it's like this expectation that things end up...
But how could there be obscurity?
What do you mean obscurity?
You said obscurity.
Yeah, well...
How could that ever be?
Obscurity just means not being collectivized.
Not being collectivized.
Like there's no Wikipedia page for it.
So
it's obscure. It's not a bad
But
thing,
there's
it's
always
obscure.
the inverse of the Wikipedia page.
What's the inverse of the Wikipedia page?
Okay, so you know how something is more rewarding when it's a deep cut. You have to work to find a song. You find a song for your DJ mix. It's really hard to find.
Sure.
And it's really good, and it's so much better because it's hard to find, because you've had to work for it. It wouldn't have the same impact if people heard it.
Yeah, well, I'm not making a value judgment. I'm not saying that it's bad or not. I'm just saying that the pessimism would be... Okay, or the pessimism then in that case would be that it won't even be a deep cut. That it won't even be worthwhile. The pessimism that it will end up being bad. The pessimism is that it will end up...
But that's just another octave of the same thing. Because the thing that's super bad and super obscure becomes more and more outsider art, and it becomes more and more crazy and fucking psychedelic the more it's on the fringe.
So what is a true failure then?
I don't think there is one.
Well, it seems to me that a true failure would be... Okay, like, wouldn't it be something that... Well, there is bad art. I mean, you have to admit, like, there's bad art.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be a failure? Isn't there a pessimism
Nothing is stocked in it. So it's just...
Okay,
it's
I'll make it
shaved
more
right
practical.
off.
Say you buy a house, and then the roof caves in, and it ends up like being a terrible decision. Like, there are bad decisions.
Oh, yes,
People make bad
that's
decisions.
Yeah.
So maybe the pessimism is just... The pessimism could be... Okay, I'll put it this way. The pessimism isn't even that you're going to make a bad decision. It's that the decision's going to be more work than you think. That you're going to have to put in a lot more work to make it good.
Just to equalize it, yeah.
Yeah, like it's almost like...
I see.
It's because the third line is so prepared to go through this long process of arduous effort to make something right.
I see. Yeah, that's true.
And so the idea is that like nothing just starts out good. Like you have to put in the time and the work to make it that way. But then you have like a 19-year-old who writes their first screenplay and it's amazing, or makes their first song and it's incredible, or whatever. Like
It couldn't be that good.
Yes, it could, and that's the pessimism. I found it. I found it. Mozart's 5 years old and writing masterpieces that go through the ages. Like,
what impact does that have on my life? Like Mozart, I'm
a
sure
lot of
has.
impact.
Through dissemination and through recapitulation,
Yeah,
through
exactly.
the filters of all these people of all these different ages, I don't think I know that I've never listened to a piece that Mozart has composed at age 17, in whatever fucking year that was, and I'm in year 2019 and I'm 29, and I've listened to this piece and I've had a crazy moment. That has not happened for me. And therefore, it is not resonant with the experience that I'm having. And I'm sure that it's very important for whatever he was doing.
But
You're
is
gonna
it
play
really
one?
not? No, I don't actually know.
Okay.
Wait, I do know. I used to be able to play some Mozart. Let's see.
Is it plugged in?
You know that?
No.
You know?
No, it sounds good. No, keep going.
No, you know that.
That's good. I know it.
Yeah.
How much of an impact has it made in my life? Does that make more of an impact on my life than Old Town Road?
Yeah, it definitely did.
You think so? Through dissemination? Through pastiche?
Let's see.
What are we talking about?
I actually haven't played Mozart in a long time, but wait, how does that one go? How's that one go? You know that one?
That's nice.
No, you know it though. Wait, how's it go?
I don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that song though, right?
I'm sure I do. Yeah, that's dope.
I mean, that's something that everyone knows. Like you would be able to figure out that song on Desert Island.
I guess that's true, probably.
It's like in your DNA at this point.
So
it's in your DNA.
Here's the thing. There's things that are in your DNA that don't move you at all. Like you can digest certain things.
But what about being moved? What about being moved?
That's what I'm saying. When you're digesting something that your body's able to digest, are you moved by that? Like you can
I'm
eat
not saying that
lactose,
moved
right? You
means
can drink
good.
milk. You can drink milk. Are you emotionally moved every time you have yogurt?
I just thought of the great
That's a good
Hegel
side
quote.
step.
He said he was talking about why he was so good at philosophy and logic, and he said it was basically for the same reason that you don't have to study logic to be logical. For the same reason you don't have to study gastroenterology to know how to digest food.
I know. So at a certain
Second line life.
No, come on. A certain thing, Mozart and digestion of lactose become part of your DNA, and you're not grateful for them because it's not appropriate for you to be grateful for them because they've been taken for granted for so long. The appropriate thing is for you to incorporate them without that kind of acknowledgement, because there's other things that are on the closer to the mutative. Because there's things that are closer to the mutative cusp that are more important to acknowledge. Because those are the things that you have to hold for longer. Because they're still at a questionable state. Mozart is ingrained. Lactose digestion is ingrained. You don't have to pay your respects to them in the same way. Like when you do, it's rarer and it's deeper. Because it's like, I give thanks to Mozart. I give thanks to lactose once in a while. But if it's something where it's like in Pokemon, you're catching a Pokemon, and the rarer the Pokemon, the less there is a chance of the Pokeball catching that Pokemon. You know what I mean? So it's like if something is more on the cusp, if it's more on the mutative edge, if it's more something that is imperative to integrate, then it's going to be more of a struggle. If something has already been incorporated through generations, like Mozart or lactose, then it's it's not our duty to pay respects to those things to the same degree of reverence that we have to pay to something that we're currently in negotiation with.
Yeah, I mean, what you're really talking about is how things eventually become practical, and I think that's what's important is, if you're able to contribute something to the collective, eventually it'll just become second nature. And if we just drink a can of beer, I don't go out and ferment the beer. I just take it for granted. And that means it's successful. Beer was a successful addition to the collective.
And every time that we take it for granted, in a way, that's honoring the thing that originally created it.
Let's get some food. Let's go honor our ability to get food. No, you're right, though. It is. It's like the fact you take it for granted means you don't have to use any calories in your brain to it's just automatic. It's actually kind of sweet. It's sweet when it's automatic.
Do you have any Band-Aids?
At my yourself?
No.
Blister?
No, my blister is opening up, yeah.
I was thinking of getting Indian food. I don't know how to
You want to go to Rock and Go?
Do you have any Band-Aids?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I have paper towels.
No, it's cool. Never mind. Do you make tape?
I don't have. Well, wait. I saw tape. I literally saw tape. It's not mine, but I mean, use it.
I'd love to use
I
this.
saw it. I don't know where the tape is, though. I saw this little thing.
Okay.
No, where was I when I saw it? It was on the ground.
Okay.
It's a little green band of tape.
Well, that's okay. I was just curious.
We'll find some.
That's alright. It'll come around for sure.
Yeah. Get my computer ready.
Okay, shall we?